because I can completely understand the thesis in terms of that, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% upside potential that is there based on that. But for investors that are watching, is that the play that they should be making, or are there other opportunities, like, for example, an India or a Korea that in that short 6 to 12 month period could see even greater upside, assuming, of course, that the China thesis does play out and we do see a little bit of that macroeconomic recovery?
Well, thanks for that, Will. And the answer is yes, we do think there are other opportunities that might even be better than that. Korea has been a market that we've been consistently overweight this year. We upgraded it almost exactly a year ago. And the basic thesis was we felt that the market would discount the drop in earnings this year and really focus on the significant recovery in 2024, which is now looking much, much more likely. And to give you the numbers on that, we think the earnings in Korea will be down about 30% this year, but up more than 70% next year. And going into all this, the market's been trading at the very low end of its valuation range. And we think the combination of conservative positioning, low valuation, and a significant acceleration recovery in earnings with an added tailwind of the AI theme, all that is a pretty compelling concoction for Korean equities to move higher. And indeed, we're seeing Korea actually being the #1 performing market in the region in dollar terms this year. But we still have mid-teens upside to our 2,900 Kospi target. And so that's certainly an area that we would focus on. Briefly, in addition to that, I would note that Japan has been breaking out. Topics has just reached another 33-year high after a brief consolidation in the summer, which our Japan strategists have been calling for. And so we're also optimistic on Japan. I think there's some catalysts coming up there, which include some bottom-up corporate reform, additional stimulus from or prodding from the Tokyo Stock Exchange, which we think will happen early in October. So I think North Asia is really the theme we're going with, and Japan and Korea would be two markets we'd highlight.
Japan's actually what I wanted to ask you about as well. So just really quickly, because we're going to have to hit into a break, you're going to be joining us after that. Just in terms of the geopolitical risk, are you worried at all that, with this Fukushima thing and the potential that we have seen in terms of there being geopolitical tensions and what that means for Japanese exporters in particular? Because we've seen this song and dance before when it comes to Korea, when it comes to Japan as well. Do you think that there's any risk there, inherent risk, that this situation doesn't get resolved and that China is going to take measures against Japan? More measures?
Well, I mean, there always is some risk there, and it's. I think it'd be foolish to say that one knows with certainty what will happen there because there's so many different sort of paths that this thing could take. I think it's fair to say that if you look at the actual sort of facts, as far as I know, I don't claim to be an expert on radioactive emissions, but from what I've read and understand, it seems that the amount of release that Japan is doing is not perhaps as great as in comparison to other releases elsewhere, as might be understood, particularly on the Chinese side. Now, that may not dissuade things from getting more tense from a geopolitical perspective, but I think it's important to note that the driver for the Japan market really is a bottom-up corporate reform story rather than a top-down export-driven one. Now, obviously, a weekend is going to be helping the export side of Japan, but Japan is less sensitive to that now than it previously has been. So I would really reiterate that the underlying thesis for our constructive view on Japan is much more of a bottom-up corporate reform one than some of the top-down issues that you've been making mention of.